Hi everyone. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. I won't be able to quite tell for everyone in the moment. Um, but what I'll do is I'll give it another minute or so, and then I'll get started. I'll just make sure that everyone has a bit of a chance, has a couple of minutes to log in. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me okay. Um, so there's quite a few of you logged in at the moment. There's still a few more people I think to log in, but I'm sure they'll be logging in over the next few minutes. But we'll make a start just because there's a fair amount to get through today and make sure that we can cover everything in good time. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I am one of the account managers here at Maiden. So whenever you get in touch with us at Maiden, you'll be getting in touch with one of our account managers. One of my colleagues is your account manager for your service. However, I'm part of the team, and we're all here to help and try and help you in any way that we can and deliver the training today. Will be for me and a few of my colleagues across the team as well. Just to go through a little bit about what we're covering in general today. So today we'll be covering the user training. So what we'll be doing is taking you through the system, adding a patient to the system, and then taking you all the way through. There are two areas of the system that we're not going to be covering today. That's super user menu, and that's reports as well. But the rest of the system, by the end of the day, we're hoping you should be nice and comfortable with, and you can come in on your demo site, and when you get logged in on your live site, you'll be more than comfortable with the areas of the system that you'll come in contact with, and nothing should be too much of a shock. So just to run through a little bit about the schedule of the day. So we're starting now, and then I'm going to take you through the first two sections. So that should take us up to about 11:30 or 11:45, around that. So around a 2-hour session with me. Then we'll have a break that will last anywhere sort of between an hour and an hour and a half, depending on when we finish the first bit. And then you'll come back, and my colleague Jane will take you through the afternoon and take you through the latter two sections. So we should be finished around 3 o'clock for this specific session. The other thing that I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask to reiterate there's quite a lot of people on this webinar, so you won't get a chance to sort of ask me individual questions as we go along. However, What you will be able to do is email either Jody or Carrie. If you email them any questions that you may have, because you will inevitably have some questions about the system as we go. If you email them some questions, what you'll be able to do is they'll collate all the questions for you, put them all in an email or a document, send them over to us, and then we'll be able to get them answered and get them back to you all in one go. So if you do have any questions as we go along, take a note of them and then email either Jody or Carrie. Cool. So with that, we'll make a start. So this is your iAptus login screen. So this is the first place you'll see when you come to your iAptus login screen. Hopefully you can all see that with the greeny blue background and the iAptus logo at the top. Once you pop in your username and password and press login, you'll be taken to the iAptus home screen. Now, when you log in for the first time, you'll be taken to a slightly different screen than this, which will enable you or prompt you to reset your password. That just means that when you log in for the first time, because you're going to be given a generic password or someone else has set up your account, you'll change it to something more personal so that only you remember, so something that you know. But once you get through that stage, you'll be taken here, and this is your iAptus home screen. So the first thing you'll notice about the iAptus home screen, probably the most prominent part, is this bit in the middle, this bit here. It says latest news. So this is our news feed. So this area is updated by both our product owners and our marketing team, and sometimes by us as well. And what it is just a nice way for us to be able to update you on anything you might need to know upcoming about iAptus or iApps in general. For example, we've got some information here about the V2 updates. We've also got some information about various updates to features. And if there are any conferences that we hold or any information we need to get across to all of you quickly, this is a nice place we go and just update that feed every now and again. Next, we have this iAptus logo in the top left-hand corner. And if you click the iAptus logo from anywhere in iAptus, it will take you back to this screen. So if you find yourself in an area where you've accidentally clicked the wrong place, or you find yourself somewhere you're not supposed to be or didn't mean to go, if you click the iAptus logo, and it will bring you back to this screen. So before we move into sort of any patient-related areas, what we're going to do next is hop on to this grey bar at the top. Now, underneath this grey bar, you can see that there's a big red bar that says important. This is an iAptus demo site. Please do not add any real patient data. Now, this won't be there on your live site as it's only a demo site feature, but all it's doing is just prompting us, and it will be there on every page today. Just prompting us at the top there not to add any real patient data because it is a demo site. So there'll be a lot of dummy patients, lots of Joe blogs, lots of Disney characters and that sort of thing. But it's just to let you know that whilst you're on your demo site, don't add any real patient data. But on your live, of course, that won't be there. So we have this top grey bar here, which we'll go through first. So on the left-hand side here, you have the user, and this is the user that you're logged in as. So that is who I'm logged in as. I'm logged in as Trainer Sheffield today. And then we have this working on behalf of. So the next thing we'll notice here is we have this little question mark that comes up next to the field. If we hover over it, what it does is bring up some information for us about the field in question. So these are called tooltips, and they'll be there throughout iAptus. They'll be there next to various different fields and various different areas, and they're quite useful little tips. They just give you some indication of what that field's about, what sort of things can be searched for, what sort of things are included in that. We use them all the time. They're very, very useful because it's hard to know what every field does and remember everything on iAptus. So if you do get confused and you see one of them, feel free to just hover over, and it should give you a little bit more context and a little bit more information. So this tooltip is relating to this field here, which is the working on behalf of section. So on iAptus, there are two different types of users. There are therapist users and there are admin users. Therapist users log in, they manage their own diaries, their own appointments, and they look after patients and fill in information on patient records. Admin users, which is what I am logged in as today, they will log in and they will have this area at the top. So therapists won't have this area, but admin users will, because what admin do is admin work on behalf of therapists. This enables them to do various things, such as go into different therapist diaries and booking appointments on their behalf, and be able to access different therapist caseloads in order to manage sort of whatever's within their admin role, to be able to manage it on behalf of different therapists. So as an admin user, I have this working on behalf of section. Now, if I need to change who I'm working on behalf of, I can select this menu. And what we'll do is bring up all of the therapist users on the service. I can scroll down, I can select a different therapist user, like so, and then I've got to make sure I press select, so I can press select there. And it will change who I'm working on behalf of, and I can now see that I'm working on behalf of Sheffield 8 therapist. The next one along, we have my account. So if I go to my account, we have this one here. So the first thing you'll see is notice there are some white fields and there are some orangey, gold, yellow, however you want to interpret the color. There's some orange fields in there as well. Now the orange fields, you'll see them throughout iAptus today, and they are your mandatory fields. So they are fields that need to be filled in and need to have something in before you can update or save that particular page. So if you do see the orange fields, you'll just know that they're mandatory. You have the username in the top, so that will be whatever format your someone in your service is going to set up with. You have your old password and your new password and confirm password. So if you wanted to change your password yourself, you can come in, you can pop in your old password and then pop in your new password twice, and that should update your password for you. You have your title. You can select from the drop down. You have your first name, last name, and you have two different email fields. So to explain the difference between these email fields, so firstly you have email support. So this is the email attached to your account, and if you were to get in touch with us at Maiden, this will be the email that will prompt you with that correspondence. So that will be where the correspondence goes to. So it is important to keep this email as up to date as possible. Just because if you do get in touch with us and we get back to you, this is how you'll know. So if this email is out of date, then you might miss any correspondence that you might have with us. The next field is email for innovations. Now we do have an innovations feature. I'll explain a little bit more about what that is shortly, as it's just coming up in the grey bar. However, this is where you can put in a unique email. So this email must be different from the email above. This way you can put in the email for the innovations feature. You have job title, and job title is a free text box, so it allows you to pop in. We've made it a free text box to give people the flexibility, so you can pop in whatever job title is in there. And next you have signature. So this isn't a signature that you can upload a picture to, so upload an actual signature into, but it is an electronic signature that allows you to pop in some information. So pop in kind regards and your name, or pop in a phone number. And what that area will do is that will pull that text that you put in that box and pull it through to a different area of iAptus. That will be explained and become a little bit more clear as we go through the day when we look into some other areas. However, you can pop in a sign off or some information in there, and you can pull that information through to different areas. And next we have accessibility. I'll show you what that looks like. It gives a high contrast feature. If that's easier for some people to see, I'll show you what that looks like. So if I press update, we can see that it goes into a high contrast mode. Personally, I find it a little bit easier to navigate the other way, so I'm going to change that one back to none. Then I'll press update profile, and I can see it can go back. Now what we'll see here, we've also got our first instance of this alert box here. So whenever you change something on iAptus, whenever something is saved or something is updated, you'll get an alert, and it will just let you know that something's been saved or deleted or updated or whatever action you've done. So if you see these, you'll see these alert boxes as you go through and update the patients. So that's the My Account section. The next section we have on this grey bar is Help. And if I select that, you can see firstly that it opens into a different screen. So what the help link does is it takes you to our iAptus help site. Now, when you go to iAptus help site, you are going out of iAptus. As you can see, 2 tabs have opened on my browser. So you're not actually in iAptus anymore. You're on a separate page. It gives you a link to our help site. And what our help site is quite a good sort of first port of call if you do have any questions or queries, or you're not quite sure about how something works on iAptus. It's a good place to go, and you can find some key guides. So on the left-hand side here, you've got all of the list of all the guides we have. You've got some user guides about the icon menu. For those of you that are super users, you have some super user guides and some areas around reporting and the patient record itself. So just to give you a little bit of an example, I'll click new patient, and we can see here, this is a little bit what the key guides look like. So we've got some text that take you through the different areas of the system, and you've got some nice handy screenshots with some arrows that just give you a little bit of an indication of how to work that particular area. So if you do have any questions at all, if you're a little bit confused, this is always a good first place to go. And if you can't find anything in there, then feel free to get in touch with us. And to get out of the Aptus help site, you can just select to close the tab on your browser, and it will take you back to Aptus. The next section is support. And if I select support, again, it does take you to a different page, but this is still a feature that's built and maintained by us at Maiden. So the support feature is how you will be able to get in touch with us and raise a support log to your account manager. So once you go to the support portal, the first page you'll see is this area here. You've got open logs, so these are all logs that are open within your service. Got signed off, so these are all logs that have been signed off within your service. Mine, so one thing is that the opened and signed off logs contain logs, as I said, within service, so you'll be able to see logs that other people have raised. The reason we do this is to give a little visibility, and if somebody else may have raised, you may be finding that there's an issue, they may have already raised it, or there may be a question that's already been asked, and you can see what the answer was to that. Just gives you sort of the visibility on that. You have mine. This tab gives you only the support logs that you've raised, so you may want to go into the portal and quickly find the ones that you've raised and find out the correspondence on that one, and it's just a nice easy place to have that. And this all tab contains both open and signed off logs. When we have some support logs in here, we're on a demo site, and it's a new site, so there aren't any there at the moment. But you do have this key on the right hand side, and there's a little color code that just lets you know what the different colors mean. That red is open, orange is awaiting sign off, so it might have been closed at our end, but needs to sign off at your end, and green is closed and signed off and finished at both ends. So and another feature is on the top right hand corner here, we have this search, and if you select that, it says please enter 3 or more characters. But as you start typing in here, what you can do is you can search for a particular query. Again, if you do find that you think there's an issue, or you think that you have a particular question you need to raise, you might want to search on here first and see if it's already been asked or already been raised, and you can see how we got back to that. But if you've had no luck there, and it is something you do need to raise, and you do need to raise a new support log to get in touch with us at Maiden, you can press this new request button at the top here, and it will take you to this page. So as you're on this new support request page, I'll take you through the fields that we have. So we have these first 4 fields here, which is title, first name, last name, and email. And if you try and click on these fields here, it is grayed out, so you can't change. The reason that's grayed out is because what that is doing is pulling through the information from your account. So on the My Account section that we saw just a second ago, this is pulling through the information from those fields. So if you update the fields in My Account, or update your first name or your email, your support email, that will pull through to this page. You have the phone number field. and the phone number field, you can just pop in your phone number. If you do feel like is a request or a particular change or anything that might be easier for us to discuss over the phone, you can always pop in your support log with a phone number, and then we'll know which one to get in touch with you with. Request description. So now, so request description is a little bit like an email subject header. So just a little bit of a brief overview about what your request is. And you have client reference ID. So this is a good time to mention, as you may already be seeing, in grey here, it mentions please do not enter any patient identifiable information. It reiterates this in the request notes body, and then you have this alert. It comes up in orange or sometimes red down the bottom here. So basically what that's doing is just letting you know that when you are adding a support log and when you're getting in touch with us, do not add any patient identifiable information. So we don't need to know any patient names or addresses or telephone numbers. And if you do include any information, just make sure that there's nothing that you can identify the patient by. What you can do, however, is in this client reference ID field, you can pop in their IAPTUS number. So when a patient is added to IAPTUS, they are given or assigned a randomly generated sort of IAPTUS ID number that is very visible on their patient record. So you'll be able to see that number. And if you give us this number, we'll be able to find the patient. So this is the only, if it is an issue that's sort of pertaining to a particular patient record, you can pop in that number and we'll be able to find the patient that way, as opposed to knowing their names or address or anything like that. It's just information government, sort of a bit of a security consideration not to add any patient information. So you can pop in their client reference ID there, and that's how we'll know which patient to look into. So you've got your request notes. There is a free text box. You can pop in whatever the request is, whether it's a particular question or something you feel might need changing. You can pop it in there and explain in a bit more detail what your support log's about. And below that, you have an importance tag. So this is where you can just label the importance. If it's a general query that isn't too much of a rush to get back for us to get back to you with, you can mark it as low, or if you think there's an issue, you can mark it as high. So all this does is it puts on a little tag on your support log. So when it comes through at our end as account managers, we can see the little tag and see what you've assigned it as. You've got a mark as private option. So as I mentioned before, in the support portal, you had different tabs that said open, signed off, mine and all. And as I mentioned, you can see support logs raised from other people in the service. However, you do mark it as private. You may want to, because it may be to do with a particular patient record or something that you may want to keep private. If you mark it as private, that keeps it just between you and us at Maiden. So if it's something that you don't want the rest of the service being able to see that correspondence, you can mark it as private. You have this drag files here and click to upload. So if you do need to upload any files, any supporting files to your support log, then you can pop it in there. You can click, it just lets you know the size limit is for each file is 12 megabits with a total upload file of 10 files. So you can pop in any files that you might need to support your support log. It's worth mentioning now that if you do raise a support log, we do have an SLA of 48 hours. So we have sort of 2 working days. That's our service level agreement of when we're going to get back to you and when you get a first response. However, it is usually within a day that you'll get a response on those support logs. So when you filled in all this information, you can press add. Obviously, we don't have any information to fill in, so we're just going to press cancel. But if you press add, what it will do is send that support log and it will appear at our end. Cool. So if you want to get back to IAPTUS, again, a little bit like with the help site, you can just close this tab and it will go back to IAPTUS. Next, you have this innovations link. So we did mention innovations briefly with the email that was on the My Account section. So what innovations is a relatively new feature, and it's the same platform that's used by companies such as Microsoft. And basically what it is, it allows a forum for all our Aptus users across all of our services across the country. So they can come to one central place and they can suggest ideas or suggest innovations to the Aptus system, things that they think maybe it's missing or things that they think would be useful for it to develop on the system. And it gives you an opportunity to come and vote on those ideas and also comment on those ideas. We do have a team at Maiden who regularly review innovations. So we review the ones that are getting the most traction, the most upvotes, and we can review those and use them to sort of shape our discussions around how we're going to develop the system going forward. Just because we're aware at Maiden that we're not always in it and using our apps in the same way that the users are, so that your admin and therapist staff will be. So sometimes there might be things that on the system that we'd love to know about from you that you feel that would be useful to develop, so we can sort of hear your suggestions and hear your voice. So it's a place where we can you can make suggestions, vote on each other's ideas, and then we can try and pick those up when we're discussing how to take the system forward. The next one is the log out button. So if you press that, it will log you out. And we have our little tortoise timer and our little timer here. So if I first explain a little bit about the time here. So this time is how long it takes an action on your screen to go from yours to our servers and then back again. So it's a nice low number now, so 0.036, which is great. That's a nice quick number. If you do feel like the system is going particularly slow and you see this number is above, say 5 seconds, then you may wish to tap this slow button. So what the tortoise does, it doesn't make it go any quicker, which we have questions about before. But what it does is it will send a notification to our network team, and if they realize that from a certain location or from a certain service they're getting a lot of these notifications, it will alert them that there may be a problem. So if you feel that the system is running slow, you can tap this and it will just send a little notification to our network and systems team who manage our infrastructure, and they can sort of be pointed in the right direction. However, if you do feel like your system is running slow and you see that this number is like it is now, so under a second, so 0.03, and nice and quick, it may be a local internet issue. So if you feel like it's taking quite a long time to load between pages, but that number is nice and quick, it's likely a local internet issue as opposed to us. However, if that number is nice and high, then please do get in touch with us, because that would be something that we'd like to look into further. And on the right, we have our countdown timer. So this is a countdown timer. So if you are idle, so if you're not active on your page, if you're not typing or clicking or moving around on Aptus or doing anything on Aptus for 20 minutes, that will count down and it will log you out after 20 minutes. And if I select on this page, I can see it's gone back to 20 minutes. So any clicks or any typing will reset this timer. Cool, so I'm going to press the logo and go back to our home screen now. So I'll take you a little bit through this left-hand navigation very quickly. All of this will be touched on throughout the day, so don't worry if you feel like it's gone over quite quickly. At the moment, it will be gone in a lot more detail as you go throughout the day and everything starts to sort of link into each other, but I'll go through it quickly now just so you're familiar with what's there. So we've got the show hide navigation bar. So if you're working on Aptus on a tablet or on a smaller device, because it is a web application, so you can use it on those devices, you can press show hide navigation and it will just get rid of that menu. So if you do find that menu is not there for any reason, it may just be hidden, and you can press the show and you can see it there. You have my patient episodes. So if I just change that to patient, so you have my patient episodes. So this is where you can see the active caseload for the therapist. So this is the active caseload for whatever therapist the admin's working on behalf of, or if you're logged in as a therapist, this will be your active caseload. You can see it's got the Aptus ID number. So I talked about that randomly generated Aptus ID number that we can know in support logs. That's that number there. There is a color behind it, and that does correspond to a different area of the system. However, that will be covered in a lot more detail later on this morning. You have the patient name. You you have the patient stage, so that is the stage that they are in the care pathway, which we'll be able to cover in a lot more detail, and the days until next expected appointment. So that days feature, if Dummy had an appointment booked in 7 days' time in the diary, that number will read 7. My additional episodes, so if you are an additionally allocated therapist, because you have a primary allocated therapist, additionally allocated, that's where you can see similarly, it works in a similar function, but that's where you can see that information. My searches is an area where you can set up unique and customized searches and quickly access those results. At the end of the day, that will be gone through a lot more detail on how to set those up and how to do that specifically. But when you create these custom searches, that's where that will show. Personal contact time, as you can see, will show that from the last 30 days and the last 7 days, the amount of clinical, admin, supervision, and total time that's been noted down. Just a quick way to have that visibility if it's useful and to have sort of access to that information. Find patients from. So this is to do with your care pathway. We'll be going over the care pathway a little bit later on this morning. So it'll make a lot more sense once we start going through it. But this is where you can put in certain areas of the care pathway, and you can quickly access how many people are in that stage. So a lot of services use it for their waiting lists. So it's just a way of having visibility of numbers in a particular stage. And below that is the super user menu, which I believe my colleague went through with some of the super users quite recently. But if you are a super user, that's where that menu exists. Cool. So now we've gone through sort of the general areas of IAPTUS, we're going to get into some more patient-related areas. And we're going to add a patient. So one thing that is unique about IAPTUS in comparison to other sort of patient management systems is that you only register a patient once, and then they can have multiple referrals or they can have multiple episodes assigned to that patient. Due to that, there shouldn't be any duplicate patients on the system, so there shouldn't be a patient on the system more than once. And the best way to check this is I'm going to add Peter Pan. You can check this find patients box here, so this find patient search. You can start typing their name, and I can see Peter Pan doesn't show up. He's not already on the system, which is great. If you want a bit of an indication of the sort of things you can search in here to find a particular patient, you can use this tooltip on the right-hand side, and it will let you know in the list in bold what sort of things you can search for. So you don't have to just search by name. You can search by date of birth or telephone number or NHS number if you want to search and find a particular patient in the system. But we know that Peter Pan's not been added onto the system, so we're going to add him on. And to add a new patient, what you do is press this new patient button icon at the top. And this is your new patient registration page. So firstly, we can see that there are some mandatory fields. There is a way to bypass on this particular page to bypass some of these mandatory fields, but we'll get to that at the end of the page. First, you have NHS number, which we don't have in this instance because it is a demo site, but we'll get to how we can get around that shortly. Local patient ID. So your service may have, the reason we pop this in because your service or any service may have a particular number filing system that they like to categorize their patients by or assign to their patients that are unique to that service. And this just gives them a chance to pop in that number there. You have consent details, so consent for data storage. So this is not asked, verbal, written, or refused. So everything but refused, so the top 3 options, so not asked, verbal, and written will default to consented, and obviously refused consent will be refused consent. If it is refused consent for this particular one, for data storage, for having their data stored on an electronic system, then you'll have to check your service processes around that, because obviously that means they won't want their information to be stored on IAPTUS, but you'll have to check your service processes around how you'd handle that if that is the case. Consent given by. So you can assign consent given by someone else. That field is currently blank, but can be filled in by a super user. So something that's worth mentioning now is there are many drop downs, which I will mention throughout the morning. There are many drop downs and many sort of fields with options that can be edited by within the service by a super user. So they have a particular permission that allows them to select what options are available on particular drop downs and in particular fields. So I will point out as we go through which ones sort of can be edited by a super user. But this, as a blank field, this is a field that is a really good example of something that if you want to start recording consent given by someone else, someone in your service, a super user with those permissions, can go in and fill whatever options they want in that drop down, and you can start recording it how you wish. Next, you have consent given and refused on, so you can backdate your consent. Next, you have consent for data to flow to Department of Health. So this is the consent for whether their information is included in the monthly submissions. So again, you have not asked, verbal, written, or refused, consent given by, and the backdated as well. Consented data linkage and all of the same information there, and additional consent info is a free text box, so you can pop in some notes that you need if there are any additional consent notes. Below that, we have patient details. So this is where you can pop in your demographic details of your patient. So we're going to add in Peter Pan. So again, title, all these drop downs can be edited by a super user. So we're going to add Peter Pan. So we've got first name, middle name, last name, preferred names, and previous names. So I'll pop in all this information to show you how it looks. Gender, date of birth in day, month, and year. We do have a date of death field on there. Is a field that we were sort of told to put an eye out to, and it seemed like the logical place to include it. Obviously, when you're adding a patient, that is unlikely to be filled in, but it is there if it's needed in the future. Disability status. So you have if I press no perceived disability or not stated, I can see the field updates as you've put in. However, if I do select that they have a disability, so has disability, this top option here, I can see that it brings up some other information for us. And I can fill in from this list however many I wish to put in. Again, that list of disabilities is editable or can be edited by a super user, and you can add or take away to any of the options that you have there. Any disability notes, so any notes related to their disability. And then we have personalized care. So personalized care is it's a free text box, and it sort of holds its unique place. It's the only free text box that can be reported on. It can be pulled out of reports in the system. And it's also particularly useful because the personalized care notes are very easy to access on the patient record. So when we save the patient, we'll see an area open up of their patient record, and we can see how that looks. And this personalized care box shows us a nice bright white box on that record, and is nice and easy to access and see those notes. So if there are any personalized care notes that need to be sort of visible and easy to access, they will be. And I'll pop in some notes, if I can spell it right, pop in some notes in here, and we'll be able to see what that looks like shortly. The address details, so I'll pop in just our office details. So address, town, county, and postcode. Any contact details, so telephone number for home, pop in just a random number there. Leave messages, yes and no. So for leave messages, if you press blank or no, it will default to no, just to be on the safe side. However, if you select yes, it means that they consent to leave messages to that area. Precautions. So this is when you might want to pop in any message precautions that you have. So don't leave messages for 10 a.m. So it's any precautions that you may have by leaving messages on that particular contact number. Next, you have a mobile field. So again, you have the home phone number and you have the mobile number. If you have SMSs and you wish to send a message to this patient, their mobile number field must be entered into this field. The reason is that the system, when it searches for a mobile number in order to send a text to, the mobile number, this particular field is where it searches for that number. So if you pop in a number in there, again, it'll be able to send an SMS. We can see they've got the same options, so leave messages and precautions. So whether you consent to leave messages, and any precautions that you have to that. And then you have SMS allowed. So believe you're having SMS feature enabled for your service. So if you want to enable to be able to send them SMS messages, whether they be ad hoc or whether that be your appointment reminders and cancellations, this is where you'll be able to tick that. So if you want to allow them to have SMS, you can tick that box there and you'll be allowed to send them SMS messages. So I'm going to tick that now just to make sure that we're we can show you that later on down the line and show you that throughout the day how SMSs work properly. At the bottom we have email address, and if I start typing in here, I can see that it will turn red. So what this does is it's not checking whether the email address is a real email, but what it's doing is just searching whether you have a correct email format. So I've had the @email.com, which the field recognizes as a valid email format, so it's gone green. And next to the email address, I have this web forms allowed. So another feature that your service is having, which is great, is our web forms feature. So what a web forms feature allows you to do is when you set up an appointment, you can select to send them particular questionnaires or particular outcome measures. And what it'll do, it'll email those outcome measures to the patient. They can access the questionnaire via email, fill in all that questionnaire, and then before the appointment, when they submit that questionnaire, it will automatically update all of that information, all of those scores into their iAptus contact, and they will be able to see all that information, and you'll be able to see all that information when you come to the appointment. So it just allows them to fill in that questionnaires before the appointment online, and it will populate iAptus with all the scores. So if I want to allow them to have web forms, I can set that. Below that, we have our emergency contact details. If they decline to provide any emergency contact details, all the fields become grayed out. However, if they want to pop in case of emergency details, they can pop in any information in there. So first name, last name, what relationship they are, telephone and notes. Any demographic details, so national identity, if other please specify. So again, this menu here can be edited by a super user. Ethnic group, so these two fields work sort of in tandem. They work as sort of like a folder. So once you select the ethnic group, you'll get specific options come up on the right. So if I was to change the ethnic group here, other ethnic groups, it will come up to different ones there. So these, again, this can be edited by a super user, but these two fields do work together. Religious group. Some language information. So are they able to communicate in spoken English? Do they understand written English? Are they able to read and write their preferred language? All that information you can pop in there. Relationship status, sexual orientation, and you can see that a mandatory field that we have here is long-term condition status. So a little bit like the disability field we saw further up the page, if I select no, unknown, or not stated, so any of those bottom three options, it will just fill in the field as it is. However, if I select yes, I can see that it brings up all of these long-term conditions below and gives us some more options. So I can select however many of these I wish. We have a couple of options at the bottom here. So we have primary medically unexplained symptom. Again, so we have some options there. We have an occupation field. There's nothing put in it, so this is another field that we were told we had to include in the patient registration. However, we weren't told specifically which which occupations we need to pop in there. So this, again, if you don't want to use this field, it's not mandatory, so you don't have to, but it can be filled in by a super user for the drop down. You can pop in whatever occupations you might want to record. Next, we have accessibility information. So if I select the unknown, no, not asked, or not stated, so any of the no options, it will just fill in as so. And if I select has accessibility information requirements, you can see that these options come up. So I can select any of these boxes and then select for communication support, however many of these I want. So as soon as I click on this box, it will bring up all the information, all the options. So we have communication support, concept methods, information formats, and communication professional information, and any accessibility notes we have here as well. Below that, we have any military details. So we have our service number, X-Arm, British Armed Forces indicator, so dependent, no, not stated, unknown, or yes. Then we have some military information such as lengths of service in years and months, date of discharge, mode and rank of discharge, and then operational tours. Again, this menu can be edited by a super user. Below that, we have registered GP practice quick search. So when you are assigning a registered GP to a patient, you can use this search box here. So you can click on the search box, start typing, and it will bring up all of the GP surgeries that have been added to your system. You can select any of these, and when you select these, it will not only will it load it into that information in the bottom, so registered practice selected, so you can see which one you've selected. It then updates this registered GP field. So along with the GPs that are updated to your system, we pull it from the national database, so it also has all the information of the actual GPs that are in that service or in that particular practice, and you can choose whichever one is their registered GP. Below that, you have labels. So there are two types of labels that exist on Aptus. There's patient labels and there's referral labels. So this is a patient label, so I'll explain a little bit more what a patient label is, and then when we get to referral labels, I'll explain that bit. So a patient label is a label that applies to the patient that will always exist on that patient record. So no matter how many times they come in, this label will always be relevant to them. One particular example we like to use is veteran. So if they are a veteran, whether they come in now or whether they come in 10 years' time, they'll always be a veteran. So it's a label that will be applied and will be visible on that patient record, regardless of how many referrals they have or when they come in. So I'll click that. I'll click that demo label that we've got set up for you, and I'll be able to show you where that shows shortly. So now we've completed our patient registration page. If I press save, I can see that it's telling me that I need to fill in all the highlighted fields, and it's gone red on the fields I need to fill in. So the field is telling me to fill in the NHS number, but as I mentioned, this is a demo site, so we don't have an NHS number. And it's also quite common on your live site that when you're adding a patient, they may not know their NHS number in that time. I don't know my NHS number off by heart, so if I was to be registered somewhere, I wouldn't be able to tell them right away. And this may be the case. And so what we've done to be able to get around this, to be able to sort of negate this issue, is at the bottom of the page, if I scroll all the way back down, we have this tick box here that says allow less than minimum data set. And if I select the allow less than minimum data set and press save, I can see that it's allowed me to save, and it's just temporarily bypassed that mandatory field and allows me to go back later on, and I can fill it in a little bit later on. So now we've added a patient. I can see here we have this is what the patient record looks like when you add access to patient record. So this area at the top here is what we call the boarding card. Now we'll be referring to this throughout the day, because as we go throughout the day, this boarding card will get more and more full, and more and more information will be put on this boarding card, and you'll be is sort of a nice initial place where you can come and see around sort of a very bit of information on the patient in one nice handy place. So I'll take you through what's been added so far. So on our boarding card, so we've added Peter Pan. We've got our Aptus number, which is, again, as I said, nice and visible on the patient record. We've got our names, preferred names, and previous names that all show up here. And we've got our details that we've added in that patient registration. We've got date of birth. From that, Aptus has given you its age, so 45. Any gender, any test number, telephone and mobile numbers, and we can see that this has a little Y in brackets. So what this means is this is to do with the consent to leave messages field that you filled in. If they don't consent to leave messages, this will be a little N instead of a little Y. Email, any language information, and then registered GP and registered GP practice. And then we mentioned those labels at the bottom of that page. So I mentioned the patient label that will always apply to that patient. We can see that that appears nice and bright and red there. I have a personalized care notes. So I mentioned in the patient registration page, you have that personalized care text box, the one that can be shown on reports, and it's also very visible, as we can see in this white box here. You can see it straight on the boarding card, so that information could be accessed nice and easy. The rest of the boarding card looks quite thin, but it will get more and more full throughout the day as we add some more information to our patient. We have our referral data open up, but what I'm going to do is go back to this patient registration tab. So we've got these two tabs that have opened here, and I'll just show you what the information that we've just inputted looks like on the system. So this is the information that we've just put in. We can see we have the option to edit, delete, or print. So only super users can delete a patient, so not everyone will have the permission to do this. But if you are a super user, you'll be logged in, you'll be able to delete that patient, or you can print that information off. So we can see all of our fields we've just filled in: ethnicity, email, web forms, previous names, names and demographic information. All of that is available there. As we scroll down, we've got our consent history. So if their consent history changes for any reason, so if they did consent to leave messages and to have their data to flow, and now they don't, you can see the updates there. Other contacts, so if they have an additional contact that's not there in case of emergency, because they may give you an in case of emergency contact, but they may also want another contact, a friend, a colleague, another family member, and you may want to pop in there. So if you want to pop in an additional contact, it will give you all this information. The only mandatory ones are the first name and last name that you need, but you have, again, type, so what sort of relationship they have, and any contact details. So I'll pop one in. Captain Hook. Press save. And as I scroll down, I can see that that's now nice and easy to access. Below that, I have registered GP practice history. So if they change their registered GP practice for any reason, if that changes, you can access that information here. And the same with previous names and addresses. So if their name changes for any reason, or they move house and their address changes, you can see the history of those changes here. So all of the history of the changes to the sort of demographic details are nice and easy to access. And below that, we have general non-clinical notes. Now, general non-clinical notes are they're quite it's a varied area. So I know some services, particularly the ones that I look after, some services use them quite extensively, and some services don't use them at all. So it really is up to your service and how you choose to use these. They are general non-clinical ones. So if I press add new note, it will bring up this text box. I can add any notes that I need, and I can save that to the patient, and I can see that it will save there. So whenever I log into it, whenever I access this patient record, those patient sort of general non-clinical notes will be there. So any non-clinical related notes that you need, you can pop them in there. This area for adding in these notes does appear more than once throughout the system. So they don't just appear in this area, they appear in other places as well. And I'll be able to show you that shortly. But this is where you go to pop this in. So now we've gone through this patient registration, the last thing we're going to do of this little first of this first section is this referral data. So now we can see, so when you add a patient, what it does, it will open up the referral form, because you've got a patient added to the system, but you don't yet have a referral open. So we'll open this referral form for you. So firstly, we have our date sent. We have a date received, which you can open. If you click, it will open a little calendar, and you can just press today, or you can backdate it if you need. The referral request received time will just default to the time when you open that page. So whenever you open that page, it would default down to the hour and minute of that. Service, IAPT or non-IAPT you can select, but it will default to IAPT when you open a referral form. Referral team, so however your services choosing to organize their referral teams or organize that sort of area of the system, you can select which one that applies to. Have your source of referral, which you can see is a mandatory field. So you have all of these different referral options. We're going to press GP, and we have all of the options that are available from the data set. Referring GP practice quick search. So this works in very much the same way as when you're adding a registered GP practice. However, the referral GP practice can be different, as we realize sometimes it is different. They may be referred by a different GP than they're registered with. So again, similarly, you can just search for a surgery or search for any practice that you need. Select that practice, and it will load the practice into the tool, and you can choose a GP. So very in exactly the same way that it works from as a registered GP practice, you can select it in there. Got a referral note, so it just gives you a little bit of information just to say if the patient gives an indication of a problem, note this down word for word. Non-clinicians should not ask for details or difficulties. Instead, only take details as indicated, and to seek assistance from a therapist if there's any sort of concern. A perinatal indicator, you can apply there. Are they currently being seen by psychological therapists such as a counsellor? Yes, no, not stated. Any employment difficulties they have? And is the referral accepted? Now, this is quite relatively quite an important field. We can see it is a mandatory field. So you have yes, no, or not stated. We're going to select yes today. If you do select that the referral isn't accepted, it will not discharge the patient automatically. You will still need to go through the proper discharge process. We will be covering that sort of very shortly, so you'll be able to see how that discharge process works. But just to let you know that if you do select no on the referral accepted, it won't discharge the patient automatically. And you have a not stated option that allows you to, if you're unsure when you're adding the referral whether it's going to be accepted or not yet, if you're not yet in a position to make that decision, you can press not stated and then come back in and fill this filled in afterwards and change it. Then you have your referred problem. So this is the problem that they've been referred to the service with, not necessarily a sort of a problem descriptor or a diagnosis. So we have our ICD-10 codes as by the data set. So we're just going to select one of these. And then we have our referral notes, which I'll just pop in some notes just to see how it works. So any notes that goes along with adding that referral. Below our referral notes section, we've got our last little section before we save, which is our labels section. So the label section, as I mentioned on the patient registration, we have those patient labels, and that was the one that I said we had the demo one that will always apply to that patient. So the difference between those labels and these labels is these are referral labels. So referral labels, as may be relatively self-explanatory, will only apply to that individual referral. So whereas a patient label, no matter how many times they come in, no matter how many referrals they have, will always be able to see that information, such as veteran. These are labels that may only apply to that particular referral. The example we like to use is pregnant, because the patient may be pregnant at that point, pregnant for that referral, but if they were to come in 4 years' time and have another referral, they wouldn't necessarily be pregnant then. So that is an example of a sort of a referral label that you would use. So I'll select pregnant and just to show you what that looks like. So once we've filled in that information, we can press save, and we can see that our boarding card has updated here. So two things have happened. You see our border card's updated. So we've got it's updating episodes. We can see we have this one episode here. So that's our referral. If we wanted to add another one, we can select this little plus here, and it will open up the referral form and let you add another referral. Lets you know that this the episode that we've now added is in progress. Is the date received and the opt-in date. The referral GP and the GP practice. Stage, so the referral received stage is always the first stage on the care pathway, and that is the next bit we're going to go through in the training. So that will make a lot more sense soon. Allocated therapist, additional therapist, and referral team. Now, it's worth noting at this point, you can see the allocated therapist and the additional therapists are both none. If you're an admin user and you add a patient, it won't assign the patient to any therapist. So you'll have to go in and do that afterwards, which I'll be able to show you shortly how to do. However, if you are a therapist user and you add a patient, the system will automatically assign that therapist to yourself, and then you can go through and change that afterwards. But just to let you know that if you're an admin user and you add a patient, it will assign that patient to nobody, so it won't have any therapists assigned. If you are a therapist user and you add a patient, it will automatically assign that patient to you. And below that, we have our referral label. So the referral label that we added at the bottom, the pregnancy one, that's where that shows. And next, we have our all of our tabs we can see have opened up here. So now we've added the referral and we have an open episode. We can see we've got a lot more tabs that are running through, and this is what we'll be running through for the course of the rest of the morning and into the start of the afternoon. And we have all of our information from our referral data that we just popped in. So when we popped in the information in a referral form, we can see all of that's available to see there. So what we're going to do, so we've had the first sort of hour. What I'm going to do is give everyone a sort of a 5-minute break, and I'll be back at around sort of at 10:35, just to give everyone a chance to go get a coffee or take a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a break. So what I'll do is I'll just pause this webinar for now. I won't exit it. I'll just pause it, and then at 10:35, I'll start the webinar again, and we'll carry on with a few of the rest of the tabs. So I'll just pause this for now, and I'll see you shortly. Hi everyone. Hopefully everyone's managed to get back. I'll give everyone another minute just to make sure, just to give everyone a little bit of time to get back and get settled before we carry on with the second part. This should take us through till around half 11, quarter to 12, another sort of hour, where we'll go through a little bit more, a few of the other tabs, and then we'll have a nice long break for lunch. Cool. So we'll get going again. So we'll get going with some of the other tabs. So between now and our lunch break, what we're going to have is we're going to cover a little bit more of the tabs, particularly these three, and then we'll try and get the problem medication tab done as well. Just to reiterate, as I've been asked to reiterate, if you do have any questions going along, if anyone may have joined after I mentioned this earlier, if you have any questions around the system, which you're more than likely to have, just some questions about how things work, feel free to note this down and email either Jody or Carrie. They're going to collate all the questions that you have for us, and they're going to send them through to us, and we can answer all the questions in one go. So it seems like, because there's quite a lot of people on the webinar, it seems like sort of the most efficient and the best way to do this. So if you have any questions, do note them down, and then email. I've been told to tell you to email either Jody or Carrie. So the next tab we're going to go to is this care pathway tab here. So just to explain a little bit of a definition of what the care pathway is. So the care pathway is something that is unique to IAPTUS, and it allows you to track a patient's journey through your service. So it's quite good for transparency, and it's also good for sort of reporting reasons as well, but it just allows you to track a patient's journey from referral all the way through to discharge. I'll take you through the tab, and it will all make a little bit more sense as we go along. So we have our first, so at the top we have this grey bar here. So we have the current stage, so referral received. So the referral received is always the stage that they go into when a referral is open. So the first stage that any patient is put into is this referral received stage. You have the time in current stage and the day since referral. Obviously, because we're on a demo site and I'm just adding the patient today, this will always read 0. However, when you're on your live site, if somebody's been in their current stage for 25 days, then this will read 25, and it'll let you know how long it's been since they were referred as well. So the first section we have at the top here is patient opt-in date. It lets you know that the patient is not opted in. There are two ways that I can opt them in. I can either press this edit on the right hand side here. So next to options we have edit. And we can then select this calendar field and then backdate or select any of our dates. Or on the boarding card, under this quick actions at the bottom, we have this opt-in today option. So we can press that, and we can see that option is vanished on the boarding card, and it's filled in the date for today. So that's the quickest way to do that one. Below the patient opt-in, we have this assign and change therapist option. So we have our primary allocated therapist. So as I mentioned, because I'm an admin user and I've added this therapist, it won't have assigned them to any particular therapist. So what I'm going to do is assign them to the therapist that I'm working on behalf of today. So I can select this drop down, select the therapist that I need. So therapist Sheffield 1, press reassign, and it's just let us know that it's updated the primary allocated therapist. And I can see in the therapist assignment history on the right, so it's always nice and visible. If the therapist does get changed, you can see this in this table. So now they are assigned to therapist Sheffield 1. And one thing that is worth checking is as I'm on, so now we can see that as I'm working on behalf of Sheffield Therapist 1 as an admin user, I can see that this Peter Pan now appears in their episodes because it's been assigned to that therapist. I can see that it now appears in their episodes. As well as primary, you also have the option enabled on here for additionally allocated therapists. So if there is an additionally allocated therapist, you can select this tab on the right hand side here. And you can choose up to 3 additionally allocated therapists. You can choose any therapist in the service. Choose any 3, press update, and you can see again you have this assignment history table, and you can see that they've also been additionally assigned to these therapists. Now for these therapists, Peter Pan won't show in their My Patient episodes, they will show in their additional episodes. So as Mickey Mouse is showing here, they will show in their additional episodes here. So when it comes to if you are a therapist user and you want to change who the patient is assigned to, or if you're an admin user and you want to assign them to a particular therapist, you come to the Care Pathway tab and you can do it in this section here. So next we have our Care Pathway history and our Care Pathway tool. So we're going to skip over the Care Pathway history just for now, because this will make a little bit more sense once we've actually got some history to show you. And we're going to move to the Care Pathway tool. So this is the Care Pathway tool. So we have our date, which defaults to today, and the time that the page was opened, any notes that may be associated with a move. And the next thing we have, which is probably the most useful bit to sort of give this a little bit more context, is this Care Pathway bit here with this little icon. If you select this icon from in your browser, so if you come to this area and you select this icon, what we'll do is download a PDF. If I open this PDF is a visualized version of your Care Pathway. So as I mentioned, what the Care Pathway does is track a patient's journey through your system, or through your service, sorry, and this is a visualized version of that. So this is a sort of allows you to visualize it a little bit better, and I'll explain a little bit more about what this tool means. Cool. Okay. So let me just explain a bit about what this tool means. So the first thing we can see is we have some different colored stages. So the green stages are admin stages, the blue stages are waiting list stages, and the white stages are treatment stages. So that's what those 3 different color stages mean. You have the code and the name of the stage, both of which are completely bespoke to your service. So your service decides what they would like these stages to be and what they would like them to be called. Making changes to your Care Pathway, to this PDF, or to the actual Care Pathway tool is something that only we can do at Maiden, because we have the tool to do it sort of downloaded on our computers. We have the software to do it. However, if you do want any of these changed, just get in touch with us via support log. Get in touch with us and we'll be able to change it and update this for you. You have these black arrows, which are forward arrows, and you'll notice an orange arrow here as well. So the black and the orange arrows do exactly the same thing, exactly the same functionality. It's just black arrows signify forward arrows, so going through the service, and orange arrows may be arrows going back up the service. So if I was to have so we have a link here between, for example, the review and then back to first line interventions. So that's just signified by an orange arrow. They have the same functionality, it's just sort of a visual aid. Now the next thing you'll notice, so we've got our colors and we've got our names for the stages, is we've got this little sort of light green. I'll scroll down to make it easier in a little bit. So you've got these little light green areas of the stages here. So they say level and they'll say IAP 0, IAP 3. We've also got some IAP 2 and we've got some IAP 0 as well. So what this little green bit and the little level relates to is discharge stages. So somebody can be discharged from any stage within your Care Pathway. So whatever stage they're in, whether that be referral received or step 3 review, they can be discharged. The reasons at which they can be discharged at that particular stage depend on the level. So I'll go through that again. So the reasons to which they can be discharged at any stage, so for example, step 3 review, depends on the level. And as we scroll down, so we've got a second page to this PDF, this gives it a little bit more context. So these are all your discharge stages, sorry. We have their code and their stage name and what they map to in the background. So this is the reason that you'll see for the discharge. And then we've got our IAPS levels on the right. So these IAPS levels, IAP 0, IAP 2, IAP 3, are the same levels that we see in these stages here, so in the little light green bit there at the bottom. So if they are at a stage that has an IAPT 0 assigned to it, they can be discharged for all the reasons with a tick next to. So they can be discharged for refer on or discharged by mutual agreement, but they can't be discharged for completed scheduled treatment or deceased. However, if they're at a step 3 stage, or if they're at one of these later stages that has IAPT 3 assigned to it, they can be discharged for all the reasons in the IAPT 3 column. So they can be discharged for the top 2 reasons. They can't be discharged for referred to another therapy service at that point, but they can be discharged for completed scheduled treatment. So if you want to know what reasons a person can be discharged with at a particular stage, you look at whatever stage, whatever level they've got assigned to it, and then you can use this table just to find out which reasons apply to that particular level. So that's a quick run through of how this PDF works and how to sort of view this PDF. So now I'm going to take you through the tool and how to actually move people back and forth through the care pathway. So I'll go back to the tool. So we can see that we are in the referral receive list. We can see that we can discharge from any level, as I mentioned, and we have this waiting for assessment. So it says their current stage, and you can see it in sort of grayed out here. I will zoom in on my page just in case that makes it easier for anyone to see. So we have our current stage. So currently, if I go back to the PDF, they are in this top stage here, and they have the option to go to waiting for assessment. So I can move them to waiting for assessment. I can see that it lists our previous stage. Again, it gives us our current stage in grayed out. And then it gives us the next stage in the process. So now they're in waiting for assessment. They can either be discharged or they can go to assessment. So I'm going to send them through to assessment. Cool. So just to give a bit of context again, so now they're in assessment. So we've moved them through 2 stages. They're at assessment and they have all of these different options. So they have every option that comes from assessment. So they have these options here, as well as the enter first line interventions option that they have there. So you can see that if you want to know, if you find it easier to see sort of on a diagram, you can see what options they have next. So you can just take people through the care pathway normally, but you can also see on the diagram what options they have available to them. So now we've moved our patient forward in the care pathway a couple of spaces. I can show you a little bit more about this care pathway history table. So we have our the order in which the move was made, the stage, the date moved to this stage with a particular time, the time in this stage, so how long they spent in each stage, the notes, moved by, and any action. So if you put it lets you know who it was moved by and how long they were in that stage. So if they were in a waiting list stage, for example, you can see how long they were in that waiting list stage. And you can either edit or delete this action. By editing this action, just to show you what it does show, if I scroll down, you can just edit the date and you can edit the notes, and you can press save. So now all we've done is moved our patient from referral received down to assessment. And we've done that in the tool. So what I'm going to show you next is how to discharge a patient. So to discharge a patient, as I mentioned, you could discharge from any level, and I've selected discharge planning and referrals. So what this does is when you select discharge planning and referrals, it will give you all of the options of which you can discharge a patient for. So I've selected discharge planning and referrals, and it's opened a little bit like a folder. It's opened up all of our discharge options. So these are all the reasons at that particular stage why we can discharge a patient. You must ensure that when you're discharging a patient, you do select one of these options, because as it stands, as we can tell on the boarding card, the episode is still in progress, so it hasn't been discharged yet. So once we've pressed discharge planning referrals, we can select the option that we want to discharge the patient for. So they may have been through assessment, we want to discharge the patient, and we feel that they're not suitable. So we can select not suitable. We can see that the current stage is not suitable for our app service, no action taken. There's nowhere further they can go in the care pathway because they have been discharged. There's nowhere further they can go. And if I scroll up, we can see we've got a nice big in red, completed, and the date. So that is how you discharge a patient in iAptus. You press discharge planning and referrals, and you select your discharge reason. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to undo any mistakes you've made in iAptus. In the care pathway area, sorry. So you may have popped them into this state, and it may have been an accident, or you may not have meant to. So the best way to do this is to undo. Is you can just press from go back and undo. You can press the previous stage. So the previous stage was discharge planning. Yeah, lets you know, are you wish to permanently delete this? You can press delete, and you can see it's just taking us back a step. So all it's done is taking us back to the step before. And then you can press assessment again. So you may want to go back to assessment. So again, go back and undo, press the red, press delete, and it will take us back. And we can see that now it's taken us back a couple of stages, and the patient now sits in the assessment stage. It's important to note that doing this is only reserved for when you do make a mistake. If you need to go back in the care pathway and you want an extra link added in, if you want to be able to go from one stage to another and there's not the option to in this menu, do let us know and we can add that link in for you. Because when you do undo or delete a care pathway move, it gets rid of the historic data. So you might want to retain that data and add a link in instead. Because if you undo a stage, you won't be able to see that the patient was ever in that stage. So it's only reserved for mistakes. But if you do make a mistake, because it is only one click, you can just press go back and undo, and go back and undo that information. So what I've shown you in the tool is how to move forward. So you can move forward using the process. So you can see the next steps. How to discharge a patient using discharge planning and referrals. And if you make a mistake, how to go back and undo by pressing the go back and undo button. Next on the care pathway tab, we have this onward referral. So for any onward referrals, you have onward referral reason. You can select from the drop down, and healthcare provider referred to. So this option, this healthcare provider referred to option, is filled in by a super user. So super users can populate this this information, and you can pop in any onward referral information in there. We have another area for general non-clinical notes. So we can add a new note there. We can pop in some non-clinical notes. As I said before, this area does appear in various places. And below that, we have patient delay. So this is where you can add a patient delay. So if there is a patient delay, you can press add patient delay in this link here, and it will bring up these bring up this information, sorry. So you have when they are unavailable from, so you can say from today, over the weekend, so they may be going away for the bank holiday weekend. The reason, so it gives you another reason. These reasons can be edited by a super user. They can edit this menu, but they may be on holiday. Any notes, so going to Spain, for example. So you may want to put them on holiday, where they're going, and then you can add the patient delay. So when you press add patient delay, a couple of things happen. Firstly, you can see that it just populates this history box. So date from, date to, what stage they're in the care pathway, any reasons, the reason that you've given for them going on that delay, any notes, and who this was by. Then you can either edit or delete this as well. You can also see that if we go to the top of the page, just by refreshing, go to the top of the page, we can see that we now have an alert. So now we've inputted that information. We now have an alert that they currently have a patient delay. When that patient delay ends, so when it gets to the end of their delay period, that alert will automatically vanish off of the record. So it makes it nice and visible if they do have a delay, so that if you were to go in and go to record a session or go to add something into the diary, it quickly makes it available for you, just to see that they have that delay, and they're not available for that period. Cool. So that is the care pathway tab that we've covered. It may be worth, if you are a little bit confused, or you'd like to have a little bit of a go on the care pathway tab, feel free to log in on your demo site after the session today. You should be given logins. As I understand it, you'll be given some logins to your demo site from people within your service, and you can come in and play around and add a patient and go through the care pathway tool and get a little bit more used to it as and when it's easiest. The next tab we have is this assessment tab. So this is an area where you can record some risk ratings, as well as some problem and risk summaries. So we have our tab here, and first thing we notice, we have these 4 text box and this risk rating. So we'll leave this risk rating for now, and we'll cover the text box first. So the problem summary, so something that separates these text box from the rest of the text box in IAPTUS is, I'll be able to show you. So we took a bit of feedback with this area. So from the problem summary, patient expectation, risk summary, and management plan. And we were told from feedback from users that these areas are more areas that they would update, as opposed to writing out new ones every time. So they will be sort of updated over a period of time, or updated over the course of their treatment. So if we save that assessment form, it lets us know the assessment form has been saved. And what I see is that not only does it let us know it's been updated, but that all the text stays there. So it doesn't clear out the box. You don't have to write all that text again. I can write more, and I can add to these notes and update these notes, as opposed to having to write them out over and over again. So it allows you to build that up slowly and sort of update the notes, as opposed to having to save them every time. Save again, and if I scroll down, I can see that the old ones aren't lost. So if I do update my notes, what it was before, you can still access. If you scroll down, you have these previous summaries option. So once you update these notes, these management plan, or these risk areas, you can see what they were before. But these text boxes just allow you to sort of continuously update those notes and to keep track of them as and when you wish. The other area we have is this risk rating area. So we have some options. So risk not assessed, high, medium, low, or no risk. If I select any of these options, high, for example, or medium, press save, you can see that a couple of things have happened. Firstly, on the boarding card, we've got this medium risk area option in the alerts. And if I hover over the medium risk, it lets me know that it's been that severity level since the 9th of April and at this particular time. So it gives you a track of when that risk rating was assigned. And in my my patient episode, because I'm working on behalf of the assigned therapist, I can see that behind the ID number we have this color, which I did allude to a little bit earlier. But what this color relates to is risk rating. So depending on what risk they've been rated, you can see that color nice and visible in the patient episodes. So red is high. So I'll go down to the options. So no risk is blue. Low risk is green. Medium risk is amber. High risk is red. And if the risk hasn't been assessed and that option has been selected, the color behind the numbers will be white. So you have blue, green, amber, red, and white. So that is the colors that correspond to those particular risk ratings. And if I want a history of those risk ratings, if it does change, I can see that at the bottom we have this risk rating history here. And below that, we have the option to add some treatment goals. If we do have treatment goals at the bottom. So below that, we have options to selecting treatment goals. You have short, medium, and long term, where they're active and active or complete, when the goal was set, and what the goal was. You can press save. And if you scroll all the way down, when it saves, it will take you to the top. you'll be able to see that treatment goal has been added there. And you can print off each individual section. You can print off the goals or print off the risk rating history, for example, and you can see that information there. So if you want to add your treatment goals, you can come to the assessment tab, and it's at the bottom of that tab. So that is the assessment tab. So that is how you add your patient expectation and problem summaries, as well as your risk rating as well. So the next tab we're going to do is clinical contacts. So the clinical contacts tab is where you can record any patient contact that you have, any contact that you have with the patient. So any contact that you do have with the patient, whether it be clinical or otherwise, you can add this into the clinical contacts tab. So this is where you can record anything from session information to general contact that you have. So I'll just take you through this tab. So at the top we have, again, just to give you a little bit of context, a little bit more information, you have current stage, so the current stage they're in, time in current stage, and days since referral. So you can see from what we did in the care pathway tab, we have the assessment in the current stage. You have patient delay. So another area for patient delay, because we figured that this may be quite a useful place to put this information, because if you are about to add some information on the patient contact or some contact you're having, you may want to know about any patient delays that they have. And next you have the option to record clinical contacts. So I will show you that shortly. So if we want to create a new clinical contact, so create a new contact, we can press create new clinical contact, and we can see that this information appears here. So at the top, we have our session date. So it defaults to today and now, because you've opened up this form now. Our session stage, so that's the stage they're in, the care pathway, and service type. So that will automatically just be pulled through from other areas of the system. Below this is where you have the details of the actual contact. So you have clinical contact requires full MDS or other contact, no MDS required. So you're given these two options. So full MDS will be a contact, again, is filling in all the MDS, and you have all of these mandatory fields, such as the outcome measures. So that will be an actual clinical session. However, we have this other contact option. If you have any other contact that you have with the patient, for example, it may be a phone call that you feel needs noting down, and maybe some sort of contact that you've had with that patient. It might not be clinical, it might not have taken any outcome measures or a full session, but you feel you need to note that information down anyway. We can see if we do select this other contact option, a lot of the mandatory fields do vanish. So if it is a contact which you haven't taken any outcome measures, for example, you won't need to fill them in on another contact. You'll only need to fill them in for MDS. And if we go back to MDS, full MDS, we add a new contact, and we see that they've returned. So if you do have a contact that's not necessarily a clinical session, you can select other contact, and it will strip away a lot of the mandatory fields. So the first thing I'm going to show you 3 different types of contacts. The first contact I'm going to show you is a completed, attended, full MDS contact. So all the bells and whistles, fully attended, completed MDS contact. So we have attendance, attended on time, not applicable, cancelled. So we have all of these options here. So we're going to have attended on time. Short notice cancellation doesn't apply because they've attended. The consultation medium, and by result face-to-face communication mode, one-to-one, group, or couple. There is a groups function that we'll be covering this afternoon with my colleague. So we'll just select one-to-one now. Appointment location, it's pulled through. Again, your super users can update this. Appointment purpose, so we'll say it's an assessment. Intervention, you can only select one primary intervention. However, on this secondary intervention on the right hand side, you can select and you can hold command if you're using a MacBook, or control if you're using a PC. you can select as many secondary interventions as you like. So you can only select one primary and as many secondary as you need. For that, you've got signpost 2, so that's where you can signpost the patient to another area, such as Citizens Advice Bureau. And then you've got your patient outcome measures. So we've got the likes of the PHQ-9. So I'll pop in some information here. Your risk Q9, which you can pull out. Your GAD-7. Your work and social adjustment scales. Work, home, social, private, family. Your social phobia questionnaires. Your agoraphobia questionnaire. Your specific phobias. And then we've got some other non-mandatory ones like the pain interference, PHQ-15, shoulder fatigue scale, and the assessment test and diabetes distress scale. But we're just going to fill in the mandatory ones that we have for now. I understand there's been some emphasis on employment related information, so we also have our employment information in the contact too. So employment status, employment attendance status, so employee in work, off work through sickness leave or not stated. Number of hours worked by typical hours worked by a person. Statutory sick pay, benefits, job seekers allowance, employment and support allowance, universal credit, personal independence payment, other benefits, type of employment support given to patient or plan to be given to patient. Is this the appointment the last employment support appointment? And then we have some use of psychotropic medications. So this is whether they can be prescribed and taken, prescribed and not taken, not prescribed or not stated. So there is an area which I'll be able to show you shortly, which gives you a lot more detail and specificity in terms of the medication that they're taking. However, this just allows you to know whether they are taking prescribed psychotropic medication. Step intensity, so this is determined by your service and decided by your service, and you have these options here. On-off cluster, so this is where you can pop in your on-off cluster. We have an option to add a primary problem descriptor via the contact, so I'll show you how to do that. So if you press add, you can add a problem descriptor. So this we can add a problem descriptor here. So at start of treatment, you can have a problem descriptor. Again, it brings up your ICD-10 code, so the same list that was in the referred problem. However, this is a problem descriptor that's being assigned by the therapist on the contact. So it might be a different one from the referred problem. The duration of the episode in weeks, months, or years. We have a time and remission option. This is more relevant to secondary problem descriptors, but I'll be able to show you that in the next tab. Number of episodes and first onset. So if I save this, I can see that I've saved this problem descriptor and it's just updated there. I don't have the option to add another one because it's primary, and I don't have the option to add another to this specific contact, but I can see that it's updated there. Below that, we have our ADSMs. So they're not mandatory, so we'll fill them all in, but we have our ADSM measures below that. Our clinical title, so I have title 1, clinical summary, clinical notes. So any notes or that is attached to that particular session. Clinical time and admin time. So clinical time in areas of 5 minutes. Admin time. Next expected contact within, up to 13. So you've got the number and either days, weeks, or months. So within 4 weeks, for example. And now we have that information filled in, we can press save as complete. So we've saved a new completed contact, and I'll be able to show you a few things that it would have updated now. So if I go right to the top and I'll work my way down. So now we've completed and attended clinical contact. We can see that a few things have updated. So firstly, our HONOS cluster on the boarding card's updated, so it lets us know that nice and clear. Below that, judging by the measures that we inputted into the contact, it's given us some more information. So we've got a moderate risk Q9, a moderate PHQ, and a mild GAD7. So judging by the scores that we put in that contact is letting us know on the boarding card, nice and clear, nice and visible. And also the problem descriptor that we put in. So we put in the problem descriptor, we filled in the ICD-10 code, and we can see we have that problem descriptor that's showing on the boarding card. And if we go down to our contacts, we can see that our contact is now existing here. So we have this little symbol that gives us the date. It lets us know it was attended. If it wasn't attended, you can see this attended bit of writing won't be there. We see it's an individual contact. We can see by our key that you have individual and group contacts, and as it's a single person there, we see it's an individual contact. We have the therapist, what stage they're in. So this is stage code of the care pathway. The title, so we put in the clinical summary title, and the MDS. That it was an MDS. We can see also that it's blue, and we can see in our key that blue contacts are completed contacts. Incomplete will show as red, which I'll be able to show you shortly. And you'll have orange ones for appointments that are booked in the diary. So this area at the top here is called the carousel. And the reason we call it the carousel is when you have lots of appointments, you can cycle through it a little bit like a carousel, and you'll be able to see. But once we add a few more contacts, you'll be able to see what that looks like. Below, we have all of the information that we've just put in to the contact. So all the information we just filled in that form, we can see is here. Everything from our clinical and admin times, our scores. So all of that information is available. So as soon as if you select that appointment, all of that information will come up. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is if I wanted to edit a contact, I have these options here. So print, fill in questionnaire, edit, or removed. I'm going to show you this edit feature first. If I press edit, I may want to edit some of this information. For example, I may want to edit some of the scores, just to show you a little bit about the functionality of how this works. So I can edit this information. I can press update clinical contact form, and it lets me know that the clinical contact's been updated. So I can edit the information, scroll to the bottom and press update. Press OK. And one thing that you will notice is now I've edited this contact, this previous records table appears here. So this previous records table does two things. Firstly, it lets you know that there has been an edit to that contact, so that there's something has been edited, and you can see when it was edited, so exactly when and who it was edited by. So that visibility and that transparency is there when it comes to patient contacts. And the other thing it does is if you select this date, so as I hover over this date, I can see that my cursor changes to a select icon. I can press select, and what I can see is in red, it will show me what it was before the change. So it gives you, again, that visibility of what it's been changed from, because we realize obviously patient contacts, specifically with outcome measures, is an important part of their treatment. So if this has been changed, or if anything on their contacts has been changed, you can select the date of the change and it will show you what it was. So it will show you what it was changed from. So it just gives you that visibility. Cool. So now we have our first contact added, so our completed one. We're going to add another contact. So we're going to press create new clinical contact again. So what we're going to do now is we have all our same common fields. We're going to make it an MDS contact, but we're going to do a did not attend contact. So this is a contact that wasn't attended. So in the attendance, I can select did not attend, no advance warning given. And I can see because they didn't attend, a lot of the mandatory fields are stripped out because you're not going to be taking any outcome measures for appointment that they weren't there for. I only have to fill in their appointment purpose, so it was going to be an assessment. All of this mandatory information is vanished. So I could just select that they didn't attend, press save, and it lets me know that it's not been attended. It adds again to the carousel, so this carousel area that I talked about at the top. I can see that it's a completed contact, so it has been completed and saved. However, the only difference between the two is the attended isn't there. So it lets me know that is a completed contact, but it wasn't an attended appointment. So it's nice and easy to add those. You can just press did not attend, select your purpose, and then save that, and it will just save as an incomplete, as a did not attend contact. Now there is another type of contact. So this is the last type of contact I'm going to show you. So we put this in sort for efficiency and for ease of use for therapists. So if you press create new clinical contact, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and add a contact again. So again, we have all of our stages that are pulled through. It's an MDS contact, it's attended on time, it's face-to-face, it's a one-to-one, going to pop in some interventions. So if we're going through and adding some scores, we get to this point and we realize we're late for a meeting, or the phone's going, or there's something we've got to rush off and do. We understand this form is quite long, so instead of backing out of it, what you can do is you can use this save and continue later option. So this will bypass any of the rest of the fields that you have. You press save and continue later, it will save it as an incomplete contact. So if you're in the middle of filling out a contact and you need to rush off, or you need to go and do something, you can press save and you can save it as incomplete. Now what this does is mark it as red. It's just nice and bright and red, so you'll be able to see when they're incomplete. And you have the option then to go and continue this contact. So you can save it as it is, and then come back and fill it in at a later date if you do get sidetracked. So we realise obviously the clinical sessions might be quite timely to fill out, especially if you need to fill out all the clinical notes and stuff as well. So if you need to go away from that for any reason, you can press you can save as and continue later, and save as an incomplete contact. It lets you know that it's been saved as an incomplete contact, either via autosave or via the save and continue button, and who that was done by. Cool. So that is the 3 types of contacts you have, and you can see we have them now on our carousel, and we can cycle through any of these 3. And if we select on them, we can see the information below changes depending on which appointment we have selected. So that's the 3 type of contacts I'm going to show you for that. And we're going to carry on and look at the rest of the tab. So below that, we have some employment support suitability information. So you can pop in any information there by pressing edit, and popping in that information. If I refresh my page now, I've got some information. You may need to refresh your page to get this. So I have some session information. So this gives me some information about each session, but all in one place. So we have clinical time, the date of the session, the time of the session, how much clinical time was added. We have our purposes and our interventions, our consultation mediums, whether you're receiving particular benefits and employment status and information. So basically, it just gives you an overall information of the sessions that you have against that patient in that episode, just in like a nice table format. And this time here at the bottom, this clinical time and admin time at the bottom of the table is cumulative. So I will add up all of the clinical time and admin time for all of the appointments in the table. Obviously, we only have the one that we've completed today because it's just as a demo. But if you have several appointments on here that have clinical time against them, it will just top that up for you. Below that, we have some information about medication. So if you've updated the use of psychotropic medication options, you can see a history of that here. And below that, we have our outcome data. So this is our outcome graph. So this is where you can see an outcome graph, or a graph of their outcome scores. So we have some scores put into our contacts above. So for now, we have PHQ-9. We can have this key at the bottom that gives you the access to each of the outcome measures. So just using PHQ-9 as an example, we can see on our graph that it's given us the 2 points. So I can look at the point here and say on this date at this time, the score was this, and then look at the next one, this date at this time, the score was this. And it's giving you a little interpolation between the 2. My battery's going to run out, so I'll just pop that one in there. Perfect. Interpolation between the 2, so I can see whether progress is. And with PHQ-9 as well, there is another example, it's given us our banding as well. So it's given us our threshold, our recovery threshold, as well as our banding. We can select a different option from the key. So we can select off PHQ-9 and select GAD7. And we can see that, again, it's similar. So you've got our points where you can hover over and see your points and see your dates. And you've also got your banding and your recovery thresholds on there as well. You can select multiple at a time. So you can select your PHQ-9, your work and social adjustment, and your social phobias, and your risk Q9s as well. So you can select multiple and see where their recovery is coming from for different areas. We can see this patient's recovered nice and well. So you can select all, and then you have the option to either toggle all or toggle off. So you can select all, or you can select specific. Now, with this outcome graph, there's a couple options that you also have available. So you have the option to print. So you can print off that section, and then you can maybe share it with the patient and show and sort of have that visual printout of that information. You can export the data to CSV. So what that will do is download into an Excel format the scores of that you've got on your outcome graph. And then you've also got this above the graph. You've got these little three lines here. If you select on that, it allows you to download the graph in various formats. So you can download that information. And again, if you'd like to print that out or have that on your computer and just have it as a way of just a nice visual aid when you're looking at recovery and looking at the progress of that patient. So as we scroll down, we've also got outcome tables. So we've got our outcome table here, which again, it gives you the information of their outcome measures and the outcome scores that they've had, just in a table format. So it gives you the session date, all the outcomes and all the scores, and gives you the options against those. If they haven't been recorded, you'll get just a little line. And we can see nice and clear which ones are incomplete contacts, in nice and bright and red. We can tell that one's been incomplete. Below that, we have another area for non-clinical notes. As I mentioned, it's sort of ubiquitous. Appears in many places throughout our Aptus. Just gives you an option to add those. We have supervision summary and notes. It's automatically closed. Supervision is an area that we'll be covering this afternoon. My colleague will be covering it with you, and so it will make a little bit more sense a little bit later on in the day. And then we have our questionnaire. So we don't have any questionnaires filled in. We have some scores filled in, but we haven't completed an actual questionnaire. So what you can do is you have these options in our complete questionnaire here. So you can select a session to attach a questionnaire by, and this will give you this drop down where you can select by the date which session you want, because when you fill in a questionnaire on Aptus, it does need to be attached to a particular session. However, there are some exceptions to this. So if I select complete a questionnaire independently of a session, it just gives you a PEQ. So you can complete a PEQ and not have it attached to a session. You can have it not attached, but for most outcome measures, you'll need to select a session. However, if I want to use the session that's selected above, I can just press use selected session above. And what we'll do is it will automatically fill in whatever session has been selected at the top here. So obviously this one's been selected. And by selecting use select a session above, it's just automatically populated that, and I don't have to go looking around for the dates. So now we've got our selected session. So we've got our session that we're going to record the questionnaire against. We can see that we've got all of our options for questionnaires here. Now, this is a very long list. I do appreciate this is a long list. And if I scroll down, you can see how long this list is. This is just because it's a demo site. So on your live site, this list will be a lot smaller. It will only be the ones that you need for your service, that your service has decided that you'll be recording. You won't have all of these. It's just because it's a demo site. On the demo site, we have all the ones that we have available. But we have our MDS questionnaires on the left, our ADSMs in the middle, and any other questionnaires we have on the right. So I'm just going to show you how to fill in a questionnaire. I'll use a nice quick one. I'll use the GAD7. It's a nice short questionnaire. So if I want to fill in the GAD7, I've selected our session and I can select the questionnaire from the table and it will take me to the questionnaire. So we have our date completed. So it defaults to today and it gives you your questionnaire here. So I can fill in our scores for each one. Fill in some information. I have the option to cancel. I'm not going to cancel for now. I'm going to press submit. If I press submit, it will calculate the score for me. So that the system will calculate the score. And if I scroll down, scroll all the way to the bottom of this page again where the questionnaires are, I can see that there's now a questionnaire in this completed questionnaire section. So we have our GAD7, which we just filled in. It lets you know when the session date was and when it was completed, who it was created by, and if it was edited at all. The option to view, so you can either view that questionnaire. If you view it, it will just give you a view and you can't edit any of those scores. You can press edit, which will open the questionnaire, allow you to edit any scores. You can print off that questionnaire and the results with it, or you can delete as well. And as I said, so when you submit a questionnaire, the system will automatically calculate a score. And from the what we've put in on each question, so from the results that we've put in, it's calculated a GAD7 score of 10 for us, and that's been calculated. And that can be accessed. So any questionnaires that you fill in against the session, you can scroll to the bottom, and all completed questionnaires will show you every questionnaire that's been recorded against that patient in that episode. It's a nice sort of place so you can randomly see all of the information there. So that's all the areas that the clinical contact tab covered. So we've made our 3 appointments being attended, but did not attend, and an incomplete, and we filled in some questionnaires and gone through the outcome measures and the outcome graph as well. So that's that tab complete. So what we're going to do is, before we break for our lunch, we're going to go through the problem medication tab, and then we'll have a break. So the last tab we're going to go through is this problem medication. This is an area where you can add any problem descriptors, either primary or secondary, and you can also add a bit more specific medication information. I mentioned on the previous tab in the clinical contacts that you can say that they are prescribed and taken certain medication. However, this is where you could say what medication it is they're taking. You can be a bit more specific in this area. There is a tab at the top which is automatically closed, you'll notice. Current contextual and non-mental health difficulties. This is an area that we basically built it for another service quite a while ago. Before I was here, it was built for another service. So instead of just having it for that service, we've rolled it out to everyone. It's closed automatically, so some services do not use it at all. They completely ignore it, which is absolutely fine. But it's just something we've made available for people if they do want to use it. So what it is, it just gives you difficulties being experienced by the patient that are non-mental health difficulties, such as employment related, primary relationship, financial or physical illness, and you can rate none, mild, moderate or severe on each case. You can write any notes against the individual action or some general notes. You can press save, and we can see that saves, and you can update that as well. As I said, when you open the tab, it is closed by default because it is something we realize that not every service uses. You can choose whether to use it or whether to record it if you like. Next, we have problem descriptor. So we've already entered a problem descriptor, and we can see that's our primary problem descriptor. And we're going to add a new one as well. So if we want to add a new problem descriptor, we can press add new problem descriptor. You can press provisional at start of treatment or current updated at discharge. So what we're going to do is we're going to update their primary problem descriptor for now. So now we've pressed current updated discharge because we've already in the clinical contacts tab, we've already added an at start of treatment primary problem descriptor. So we're going to add another, we're going to update it. So it might have changed, so we might want to update the primary one. So we've selected primary and not secondary. We want to update it to a different problem descriptor, generalized anxiety, for example. And then we have all the same options that we had before. So we have the duration of the episode in weeks, months, and years. Time in remission, which be a bit more make a bit more sense when we go through the secondary. The number of episodes, including this episode that the patient has experienced this, and when it was first onset. So if we want to save this information, we can press save, and we can see as we scroll down that it's updated in the table. So we can see that is how you update and assign primary problem descriptors. What I'm going to go through with you now, though, is how to do a secondary problem descriptor as well. So if I press add new problem descriptor at the bottom here, press again current updated discharge, and it gives us a chance to update our secondary. So secondary problem descriptors are problems that may not necessarily be their mental health difficulties in and of themselves, but maybe problems that have attributed to that as well. And the data set gives us these options in this format, in this ICD format here. So you fill them out in order. So you start with the section. So maybe a external cause of morbidity or mortality. Then you can choose the family, so a bit more specific again. Exposure to forces of nature. ICD group, victim of exposure to other and unspecified forces of nature, and then where it occurred, so on a farm, for example. So this patient may have had exposure to unidentified forces of nature on a farm, but this problem you may wish to record. It does get very, very specific if you want to come in and have a go. But this may be information you want to record because it may be a contributing factor to their primary problem descriptor. Again, you have the same options: duration of the episode or time in remission. So it may have been something that happened a long time ago, and they may have been in remission for a long time, in weeks, months, and years. Number of episodes, and first on set. And if I press save, I can see, if I scroll down, the secondary problem descriptor also saves there as well. So we have our primary and we have our secondary, and that's how you can add both and update them as and when you wish. Below our problem descriptors, we have medication. So this is an area to add a bit more specific information about medications. You can press add new medication. You can press whether it's at start of treatment or current. The medication type, again, this information, this drop down can be completely edited by a super user. Details, name of drug, dosage, duration since the medication was started in weeks, months, and years. Has the medication ending? Because you may want to record a medication that they were on, but you may want to have that on the record that hasn't been on there. And you can press save. And if I scroll down to the bottom, this information has been saved. So whereas on the clinical contact tab, you can put in information that relates to whether they are taking medication. This tab, this problem medication tab, allows you to be a bit more specific and record the actual medication that they're taking, if that's relevant. Cool. Okay, so that's all we're going to cover for this morning. So in the afternoon, you'll be going through the rest of the tabs with my colleague Jane, and she'll be taking you through some of the icons at the top here. So that is our morning session completed. We've made quite good time. So what we plan to do and how we usually do these webinars is we're going to give a nice long break now. So we're going to give between now and 1 o'clock. So the webinar will continue at 1 o'clock. I'll exit the webinar now, and if you can all come back and be if you can all come back for 1 o'clock, my colleague will be able to take you through the afternoon. Again, if you've had any questions over the last couple of hours or so, make sure you sort of collate these and send them on to your either Jodie or Carrie. But that's the morning session done. Thank you very much, and yeah, you'll have a nice 90-minute break now before the webinar resumes at 1, and you'll be hearing from my colleague Jane. Thank you.